Welcome to the Naked Podcaster. Get ready to hear stories of someone brave enough to bear it all. Let's get naked. Welcome to the Naked Podcaster. It's Jen Taylor today with Brian Ross. I am really thrilled to have you on today, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jen. I really appreciate that.
Your website. Oh, I'm so glad. Your website is consciouscontent.org.
Correct.
And it's the Conscious Content Collective. I'm trying not to stumble over the words. Sorry. So consciouscontent.org is huge and it encompasses a lot. So jump in and start talking about this and who you are in this.
Okay. Well, Conscious Content Collective is really our name. Consciouscontent.org is our website. And we've trademarked the Conscious Content Collective. And collective means it's not just myself. It's not just Kim and I. It's a collective of all the various experts and people that have been through things and add to this. And so it's always been that since the time that Kim and I co-founded it about 4 years ago. But Conscious Content is a media company, and we have some really big goals, and we are achieving those currently. It's a lot of work, but essentially what our message is and our mission is that we bring awareness and education through the creation of what we call remarkable documentaries and now books and workbooks to most of humanity, and that's a really big frickin' number. So that is the collective, because we know we can't do that on our own. It takes a whole army of people that are on the same page as us, that want to just bring awareness, want to bring change, to look around the world and say, this world's kind of fucked up. And, you know, that's really how this started. If you don't mind, I'll tell you what because my background isn't media, and neither is Kim's. You know, her background is corporate. She was in corporate for a long time, and I'm an entrepreneur. Conscious Content is believe it or not, my 5th company that I've either started or co-founded. So we don't come from the world of making films, and I think that's the beauty of this, because it makes us dangerous. We don't know what the hell we can't do, right? So we are pushing the limits and saying why, or could you do this, or wouldn't this be amazing? But generally speaking, how this got started is that you know, Kim had this traumatic thing happen to her. She was on your podcast several months back. People remember Kimberly Resch's ordeal when she was young, and I'm not going to get into that, but it was tragic for anyone at any age. And at some point, she had drawn a line in the sand, similarly to but 2,000 miles away, saying, you know, enough is enough. I'm going to change my life. And that's what I was doing too. I was in the process of really figuring out my life. My older brother passed away, and my boxer, my best friend, who was only 4 years old, Max, my boxer dog, passed away unexpectedly. And I just drew a line in the sand and said, you know what? Life is short, and I'm in a terrible marriage. My wife has bipolar disorder. We've been working to try to, you know, get this relationship on track for years, mostly for the kids. Yeah, everybody's heard that story. I'm going to stick around for the kids. And that was me. And, you know, now that we've gone through that, I'm now divorced, and my daughters live with me primarily. I realized that I probably did it too late. Because there was a lot of damage that can be done in those bad years, right? So anyways, to jump back into this, you know, Kim and I met through another business, just became friends, and still are the best of friends, to be honest with you. And she was telling me about this idea she had to start this documentary called Light in the Darkness. And I don't even think it had a name yet, but it's about PTSD. And she was like, I think I got PTSD. You know, we talked hours and hours about different business things and life. And I told her about all my problems and, you know, goals and aspirations and stuff. And you know, she said that, so I've got this film group called Shaman Motion Pictures. You know, they used to do weddings, but they're phenomenal, right? And I'd love for you to meet them. And I didn't see it coming, because I'm just her friend. And I am giving her some advice about some business and things because I've started and ran a lot of businesses. And, but just as a friend, right? Well, I end up having to go to New York during the winter time a few years back, and Shaman happens to be there filming one of the chapters of the book. And she lets them know I'm coming. They already knew who I was. I met them, and I'm totally dressed up. I am dressed up like the financial advisor that I was, right? And I am, I guess. I'm licensed in like 13 states. But anyways, I'm in a pair of slacks, dress shoes to the nine, right? And I've got like a trench coat because it's fucking freezing outside, and I'm from Florida. And I walk into Starbucks across from where I'm staying, and here's these four guys, and they're in their mid 20s to early 30s, just dressed totally chill. And I look totally different than what they expected, probably, or I don't know what Kim told them. But we sat down and we started having this conversation, you know, and I took my jacket off and I started to feel them out. And this is kind of what I do. I get to know people and kind of what my gift is. And but we started talking about everything except business. We started talking about life and their background and my background and what I did. And, you know, so this is what probably sealed the deal with Shaman and Brian, is that I didn't really care because I cared, but I didn't care what people thought, because recently I had just done a plant medicine called ayahuasca, which is probably the most powerful plant medicine known to man. And it was performed by a shaman. And I went through the story about how much clarity I got, that I literally was seeing my entire life for what it was and what my purpose was. And I could ask questions, and it was so deep. It was an incredible experience. I'm not recommending people go out and try this, because it's so powerful that you have to be in a group. You have to have a shaman. You have to know what the hell you're doing, or I don't know. No one's ever died from this shit, but it is powerful, and it'll turn you inside out before it lets you back out, right? So in telling these stories, they're like looking through this guy in a suit, talking about ayahuasca, probably marijuana use when I was younger. And, you know, and it wasn't like I was just trying to connect with them. I could feel that that's kind of the vibe they were at anyways. And they make films. And anyways, I gave them a hug, had to go back to what I was there for. And then I got invited to Denver, or part of Colorado. I'm not sure if the first one was Denver, but ended up going to Colorado and got to sit in with Shaman and Kim as they're interviewing the Seahorns that are part of Light in the Darkness. And I saw that storytelling process, and I met them and had these deep, deep conversations. And I was like, wow, you ever had a situation, Jen, where you're doing something, you're like, holy shit, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And sometimes I mean, for you, other than the fact that you'd had the ayahuasca plant medicine situation, like, I'm not picturing you as being, you know, I'm picturing you more type A, and not like, this was not your environment that you were comfortable, familiar with. And the company was brand new at this point, or did you guys actually start it together?
So we started it. She hadn't started it yet.
Okay.
What they were doing is they were just putting together a documentary, and it was called Light in the Darkness, but there was no company or anything like that. And Kim and I decided a few months later, after I'd been out to 3 or 4 locations. I was in Dallas, and I was in, I think, Atlanta at one point. But I think the first time the guys sent me some of the film footage that was already being post-edited, I started to see the power in film. And, you know, I've always wanted to teach and have more purpose in my businesses in my life. And I was doing that with financial advising, but it wasn't really made for me, to be honest with you. Too much regulation. But when I saw that, Jen, I said, oh my God, Kim, this is so powerful to tell a story. If there's so much media out there, there's so much noise. People are creating all this, and it's amazing what YouTube has done, and there's a place for pretty much everybody out there, but I just don't think at the time, I didn't think there was just that much mindful media or conscious content. And all of a sudden this light went off in our head, like, well, maybe we should create conscious content. Maybe it's not just about light in the darkness. Maybe it's about these issues. So I think often a lot of people look around at their life, especially right now, and go, this doesn't seem right. Like, right is wrong, wrong is right, what's up is down. I mean, are we in a dream? What can we do about it? And it's a big task. So Kim and I were like, what could we do about it? Because I can't just go out and, I want to do something to change the world. I mean, I'm at that age now where it wasn't necessarily about money. It was more about purpose, right?
Yeah.
And, and doing something that my kids would really, I like to lead by example, So we decide to start conscious content, and the next thing you know, we're sitting down with the guys brainstorming about issues that we are find in the world that maybe we could bring awareness to. So the whole goal was, we're going to bring awareness and education, and then do this at such a level, such a remarkable level, that people will be so intrigued emotionally by our films that they will be called to action. So I happen to believe there's people all over the world that have these skill sets, right? And they're watching this world and these various issues, and they don't know how to, or maybe they feel like they're too busy, but they don't know how to fix it. The goal is, when they watch our films, that they get so emotionally inspired that either they share it with someone else that they know that will benefit, or eventually those people that do have the ability will start to pick up from where we're at and take this on. Whether it's about mental health, mental illness, PTSD, bringing awareness and education about that, which is Light in the Darkness, or some of our other films like A Rescue Story. This is going to be the funnest, most emotional film. We already saw the first rough cut, and we were crying and laughing through the whole thing, but it's about the rescue story. It's about our companion pets and the issue with no-kill shelters, and creating awareness about that, and bringing solutions, because this can be something that can be resolved. We've got everything from Tethered, which is about all the screen time that our kids and ourselves are being sucked into our cell phones and away from, it's so weird me saying this now, because the world flipped upside down like 5 weeks ago, right? Now we need to be 6 feet apart, or we're sequestered home, but the goal is that we connect, because I think that's what brings us joy, that what brings us purpose. And so we've got 6 films in our pipeline. We've got one that's launching. We were already planning to do a 700 theater rollout. And then we had to pivot because of this COVID-19 or lockdown situation, whichever you want to call it. But so we're pivoting. We've got a great team. We got a social media team now on board. We are now working with a publisher, Daily House. One of the ways that I met you actually through Kim,
right.
But you're working with us on that. So come June 15th, we're going to be releasing Light in the Darkness, our film, and we're going to be pre-releasing the book, Light in the Darkness, #lifting the stigma, or lift the stigma, I think it is. So
lift the stigma.
Pretty pumped.
And I knew you had 5 films. So you went from like meeting this lady and being friends to your whole life flipped around completely.
That's true.
Yeah, in a really
Sometimes
great way.
It just happens. I believe that if you get involved with something wholeheartedly, sometimes you don't even realize how much is happening until you take a look around when you get a pause. And we've done that more than one time, and more so now, because we've had, my story, and we'll probably get into it. I've had a lot of success. I've been humbled multiple times in my life. So things come out of left field for people in life, and they sure have for myself, and they sure have for my best friend and my partner, Kimberly Resch. So right now we're dealing with probably one of the most difficult things a family could deal with. We are very blessed we're part of, a life coach of mine said, I'm a member of the club no one wants to be a member, and that's when you lose a family member. So
Yeah.
we're very lucky within that club that no one wants to be a part of to be working on things that are so purpose driven, and we're writing and talking about and filming about how do you get through these things in the best way possible, so you can come out the other side where there's light on the other side. So we do feel super blessed at the same time as we're going through our own traumas. So
And
yeah.
we're recording this in the middle of, well, I mean, I don't know if it's the middle of, but during coronavirus and COVID-19 and quarantine. And so definitely June 2020 looked all full of hope and open purpose right up until March hit. And then,
Wow.
yeah, I like the word pivot a lot. I think we do that sort of a lot of people, we kind of pivot just without thinking about it. But you're right. I mean, your pivot was a little bigger, from financial planner in a suit to conscious
Yeah.
content was a massive pivot. So you were very aware of it. So I have a question. When did the romance happen here?
Romance? Who said there was romance?
There's no romance, huh?
So yeah, but, I got some flack from that because I actually went through a
Oh,
divorce, and on Facebook, I actually ended up closing my original Facebook account, because when I went through this breakup, and it was a long, long time coming, um, uh, and my wife, my former wife, Sonia, even wrote a letter to me, basically writing out all the things that she did realize was wrong, and she apologized finally, and she had this moment of clarity. And I had told her, because I knew how she was, it wasn't bipolar disorder, it's multiple personality disorder is what she has I would say a milder case of that. But I told her, I said, thank you for writing that, but just please be careful about, sharing things that are more fictional to the world about this situation, because, our kids are getting older, they're teenagers. And if they find out that you're telling lies about the situation, it'll get back to them through the dance or through their friends or our friends. And that's one of those things that's really, respect of our children. It's really hard to get back once you lose it. And unfortunately, she's having to work through that now. But yes, so yeah, I was blamed for leaving my wife for this beautiful girl, Kimberly, and that wasn't the case at all. I am very blessed to have met Kim, and hope she feels the same way. But we were friends for a good three years, I guess, and then we started the business together and working together. And and doing that, you spend a lot of time, and doing what we're doing it's pretty purposeful, right? We started to realize, wow, there is somebody out there that I'm better suited to be with, and so. But we both had children, and we were really careful about that. And Kim is really, really good about communication. She's had so much skills, and she even taught emotional intelligence for a long time. So it was really great having her sort of show me how do you communicate with the kids through this process. And it was a slow process. And then ultimately, I think it was our kids that really started to fall in love with the idea, because shit, up until June, I mean, ever since we started Conscious Content, it has been blessed. When my point is that it's been hard, it's been a lot of work, but people have come out of the woodwork, the right experts, the right people at the right time. Our discernment levels are high enough to where we know how to keep our circle tight, and we just don't have a lot of bad or any bad within our circle. And, God, Kim is really she's a sharp girl. She knows what she wants, and she goes after it. And it was really, for an A personality like myself, I mean, I've owned my own business my whole life. So I'm like the boss all the time. That's my biggest problem, right? And then she is too. And it's like, wow, how does that work? And
Right.
then learning to do that, instead of me, getting frustrated with it, I was like attracted to it. I was like, wow, this is so amazing. Like we could start this project and we can share the responsibilities. And in a lot of cases, she's better than I am in all these, and I used to do a lot of these things that she does better than me. So, so amazing to see her grab that and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how it really started, but it did start, and wouldn't change a thing at this point. And her and I have been through an awful lot together.
Yep.
Not just building the company. And now my daughters live with me primarily. They're both teenagers. Her son lives close by. He moved down from Wisconsin. He works for Conscious Content now, and he's become best friends with my oldest daughter. And there's a lot of that going back and forth. And obviously, with the passing of Taylor, her youngest son, which is something that we still can't get our arms around. And I'm only now being able to really talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
and without getting so super emotional. We just did a State of the Union video that just got put up we just started a Facebook group, Conscious Content Facebook group, and I'll share those links towards the end of the show. But that's where Kim and I are loading up all our raw material. Like when her and I, whether we're here in the studio or outside or whatever, we're doing various film videos about a bunch of things, and then our team is creating the films for us. So, but we, God, the last 6 weeks have been the hardest freaking 6 weeks of. I've been through a lot of shit, Jen,
Mm-hmm.
and to do what Kim and I did together with her son, and that's just something, I don't know if I want to get into it, but to lose a son in front of us was, I don't know, I would have never wanted us to be joined that forever, but because of that, but man, it's solidified. We've been through hell and we're trying to come back. And thank God we have people like you and other people on our teams that, we have to show up every day and keep doing what we do. We started this thing, Conscious Content,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot to do, right? And there's a lot of people counting on us, and a lot of people that we're paying money to help us. So, gosh, it's been a blessing to have things to do every day. It's just not every day. We weren't able to work for a few days, I tell you what, and when we did work, it was off and on for sure. But I got to say this, I love Kim to death, and I don't, I don't call her my girlfriend. I call her like my partner or my life mate or soulmate, or soulmate is used all the time, but she's a good person, and I'm very blessed to have her in my life. So
Let's jump back. Let's go back in your story, because I know what happened this last 6 weeks has been super tough. So the timing of this recording is apt. There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
Jump back and tell me about growing up. Did you grow up in Florida?
I did. I was born in Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale. My parents are from Canada. My two older brothers were from Canada. Dad moved us down here because he couldn't handle the cold, apparently. And
Amen.
it's crazy. I don't know if a lot of your audience is like this, but I can't remember my early childhood. Before the age of 6, don't remember it. And maybe it's good, because my dad was pretty intense. He was a really intense guy. I don't think he was super happy once he moved down to Florida from Canada. Big family business, and came down here, and things weren't working out for him the way he wanted, and he seemed to unfortunately take it out on my brothers and I. And when I used to complain, my older brothers used to say, damn, Brian, we wore out, Dad, before you came along. So if you think it was bad, you have no idea. So anyways, but that being said, I did have a good work ethic. My dad always had me working and doing things. And I remember, as a young kid, we moved up to Orlando area, Central Florida area. And by the time I was 10, I had a lawn route. I was mowing the neighbors' lawns, and I had a bunch of lawns in the summer. And in the wintertime, I was picking oranges and selling them to a local company. And so, I was making my own money when I was, between, while I was in school. And that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. And I still played with my friends and all that. I just happened to have money. So that led on to, my dad passed away when I was in high school, unfortunately. And I kind of got off on the wrong track. I was pretty wild. I'm type A personality, and I was a little bit of a hellion. But my mom did something really cool. She worked all the time. She was in the insurance industry, so she wasn't around a lot, but she got me a bunch of tapes. And for whatever reason, I resonated to them. They were Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar and all these people that were talking about, and I'm bringing us back quite a ways. They were tapes, right? Not 8-tracks, but they were tapes. So a little ways back. But I started listening to these things, and I was resonating with them in my late teens. And I remember listening to them like all the time. I'd listen to them before I went to bed. And these tapes were teaching me things like if I wanted something and if I created a plan for that, and if I envisioned it in my mind, it would eventually come to pass. Kind of like the book Secret, but with more work involved. And I basically convinced myself that I could do it. And by the time I was, let me jump ahead. I started my first real company at age 18. It was a landscape company because I didn't know how to do anything else, right? I was in college, put myself through college with this company, First Choice Landscape Management. I actually bought a company while I owned that company. I think it was 19 or 20. I bought out another company. I met this guy, and he was wanting to get out of the business to move back to California, and I bought his business, doubled the size of my company, and probably by the time I was 25, I was making, and back then this was a lot of money, and today it's probably a lot of money. I was making about $75,000 a year, and I dropped out of college like a dumbass. But I dropped out of college because I thought I'd taught myself that I didn't need a job. I could create a job, and all I was learning in school was how to work for somebody else, So I sold that business and got into, I met a mentor along the way, and by the name of Paul Steyer. God rest his soul. He just passed away, but he lived in a really, really high-end place called Sewell's Point in Stewart. And he became my mentor, and I was working as a pharmacy sales rep, first job, and he talked me out of that, and I started working with him. He was a consultant for multiple companies, and he got me my first job in venture capital. And I worked with a company down in Miami off of Brickell Avenue on this private island. It was so crazy. I drove down there as a small town kid, and I'm seeing Miami. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, but I moved away from there years ago, and it was Christmas time. I remember it was all done up, and it was almost like New York, and I couldn't believe it. And I actually was nervous, and it was the first time I realized that I'd been nervous in a situation like that, because having my own business already, I'd already met a lot of adults, and I was getting pretty good with working with my realtors and various clients, and this was pretty big. And anyways, I got my chance to do this, and I was handed a big box of files of people that had called into this company that wanted lots of money. And my job was to call them and have them tell me why they should receive that money. So as a young 20-something, I'm calling these people up, and I had everybody from, I swear to God, from the owners of airlines to, I remember this one film producer out in LA, to these Russians that were bringing over monuments, to all kinds of crazy things that they were pitching me. And I was just this young kid on the other line. And what it did is it taught me that, wow, anything's really possible. It built up my confidence, not necessarily my ego, but my confidence. And we'd fly some of them in, and I got a chance to meet them. And I had learned earlier on with Paul Steyer that in a situation like a meeting like that, to to only talk when you know what you're talking about. And when you don't, listen. And I was the youngest guy in the room. I knew that.
Mhm.
I had to grow a goatee because I looked so young at the time. I had to grow a goatee, and I've seen pictures of myself. The suits I had were lame. They didn't really fit me, but I didn't know any better. But I'm sitting in these meetings with my boss, and he was seasoned. And I saw how these things happen. These transactions go back and forth. And I saw my boss try to scam these people. And I heard him on the phone trying to scam people. I heard the craziest shit, Jen. And I said, oh my God, is that what venture capital is about? And it is in a way. It's full of sharks. But as I started to look around and talk to some other people, I started to realize it doesn't have to be this way. It just happens to be happening in this space that I was at. So anyways, I got introduced to another company out of Tampa, and I headed out of there. It was a tough, he didn't want me to leave, but I got out of there, and I started my first deal, and I worked with another company, and eventually I made some money on that first deal. It was a telecommunications deal. And I was kind of off to the races. I didn't have any kids. I wasn't married. And I told this, who would become my partner in the future, I said, hey, I'm going to start this company. You need to come with me. We're going to go raise some money. We're going to do it the right way, because there's a lot of money and there's good companies, and you don't have to screw people just to make money, right? And he wanted to, but he had 3 kids and da-da-da. So I started North Star Equity Partners myself. He eventually came on. And through 2001, we really had a great time. We raised a lot of money, and then we lost our ass in 2011 or 2001 in September 11th.
Okay.
Market crashed, and that was my first time really just losing my ass. And my partner told me I needed to have some really thick skin, because all these angel investors that we befriended and loved us because we were doing so well will soon turn on us, and they did. So long story short, I left that, got into real estate, eventually got my act together again and built back up. I had a couple real estate offices and a mortgage company, and we did really well up until 2008 in Florida. And I often kid, Wednesday at 3 o'clock, 2009, I guess, the market turned off. And at that point, I had 4 houses, and I had 2 offices, and I had 200 listings and no buyers. And my lines of credit were getting called in, even though I wasn't late. And this shit hit the fan. And sadly, over the next 2 years, I went through a really, really tough time. And I ended up, my attorney ended up convincing me my only way out of this was a bankruptcy. And that was probably the lowest point in my life. It still makes me emotional, but
that's interesting that that's the lowest point. Your dad had passed away. I mean, because I have bullet points of your story. Your dad had passed away in high school. I don't know how that felt to you emotionally, because I know that you said he was a very dominant figure. If I use that term on my father, that would be a massive understatement. But, but when you have somebody that's that dominant, was there relief in it? Was it tragic for you? Did you get closer to your mom and your brothers? What happened in that? And then tie in Nate and your accidents. That's why I'm like, okay, the bankruptcy, I can understand how that is definitely one of the lowest, but you've had some other stuff that's happened before that I think,
I've had a ton of shit.
I mean, I'm like, that was the biggest one. Okay. Like it's your story, but so tie in Dad a little, and then talk about Nate and you and your accidents.
Okay. Well, it is interesting about my dad, because my dad was not only dominant, he was very reactive too. And it's a bad combination. And he was physical. So I did, it's not my story, but part of growing up with him was that I did get not only yelled at, but I got, physically hit and things like that. So there was a time when I was a teenager, prior to him passing away, that, there was part of me that just wanted him out, And unfortunately, I think I even secretly wished he'd die, but I didn't know what that meant, you know.
Right.
Um, but when it did happen, it was very unexpected. He had a rare, I guess it's pretty rare, something called hematoma chronosis. I think I pronounced it right, where his body can't get rid of the iron in his body. And he never went to the doctor, and he looked healthy, but he died of a stroke from that. Essentially, it builds up iron in your body. So anyways, I've been checked. I only have one of those genes, so I'm okay. But unfortunately, my older brother, Brad, had it too, and he passed away 3 years ago from the same damn thing. But
Okay.
yeah, sad. So my dad, for the longest time, my mom would say, you know, you remind me so much of your dad. And I would get so pissed because all I remember was the bad side of him, right? But she said, no, I mean, he could make friends with anybody. And he really was a good businessman. And he, he's really smart and loved to study. And so over the years, I began to think about some of the more positive aspects of my dad. And I did miss out on a lot of what my brothers got from him, which he was really good at a lot of things, and he taught them a lot of things. So I was fortunate to have some mentors in my life, but I lost him at an age which was unfortunate. You know, I was only 14. You talked about my friend Nate, but before Nate, if we want to go in chronological order, so I had some things happen, you know, that really reminded me my life must be on purpose. So almost died in a motorcycle accident, New Year's Eve. I like a fool got on the back of my friend's motorcycle. We were supposed to go see our girlfriends, and he tells me we've got time to kill. That led to a very high speed run on his motorcycle, 165 miles an hour. We ended up running out of road. And the only thing that actually saved us is we ran into the back of a car going down a dirt road. It's not really a dirt road. It was a really hard clay kind of road, narrow road with trees on both sides. Thank God we didn't hit the trees at that speed. We'd have been ripped apart. We ran into the back of this car sliding, and they said they were going 55. So we hit a car sliding on the ground that was going 55. So we didn't come to a complete stop right away. And that's probably what saved us. So that was scary as fuck, because I realized, damn, I just saw my life. And I wasn't even hurt besides my knuckles and my elbows. I wasn't. I had a helmet on, thank God, because that left blue marks all down this road. We went and saw it the next day. But I survived, and I realized what a gift that was at the time. I was pretty spiritual still. I'm more spiritual now, but I was spiritual, and I was really paying attention to how things possibly work in the world, in the universe. Jump forward to my best friend at the time, or one of my best friends, Rodney Green, and I decide we're going to get scuba certified. And
oh yeah, so all right.
We live in Florida. There's lakes and there's rivers and there's ocean all around. So we want to do this, and we decide to do this. And the only place that we can practice with this company is in a pool. So we got certified in a pool, and Rodney and I, both good swimmers, both in pretty good shape at the time, decide we're going to go to these springs. They're called Blue Springs here in Florida, and it's 110 feet deep, I think. And it's narrow. It's only about 40 feet across, then it goes straight down. And but it was a super sunny day, and we went down together, and we got down about 75 feet or so. And the water's really rushing up from this. And so I decided to take off my fins and jump out across it, and I could do flips and go up to a higher ledge. And Rodney didn't think it was as fun as I did, so I kept doing this, and I'm swimming around. And what happens when you're diving at a deeper level is you get something called, it starts to kick in, called nitrogen narcosis, where you kind of almost have a little bit of a drunk feel almost, you know? Okay. So anyways, I'm doing this, and then I'm having fun. I'm hanging upside down. I know the story's long. I'm hanging upside down from this ledge, and I'm watching my bubbles blow all the way to the surface because it's super sunny, and I'm at like 65 feet. And the bubbles, they blow, and they get bigger and bigger as they get to the surface. And I noticed on a breath that my regulator is giving me a little bit of a hard time. I'm thinking it's because I'm upside down. So I blow out, and I'm flipping myself back up, and I go to take a breath. And if you put your lips together completely and try to suck through your lips, you can't get anything through, and that's what it's at. Now breathe out all the way, pierce your lips. Now try to pull.
That's
what
panic.
that's what I experienced at 65 feet. I'm struggling to get to my regulator, to my gauges to see, and I get them up, and I look, and oh my God, I'm freaking out of air, and I'm total novice at this time at diving. And I look around, I have no air in my lungs, and 65 feet is a long ways to the surface. And I look around, I see Rodney, he's about 10 feet above me. So I swim to him, and I give him this sign where you take your hand across your neck, and it's a universal sign that I am out of air. And his eyes just bulge. We just learned this stuff. The other thing you're not supposed to do is share a regulator because, so we're trying to get his octopus regulator. We can't get it, and I need some air. So he hands me his regulator. I take a breath. He takes a breath. We start heading up, and we stay together. Sorry, makes me emotional. Oh, shit. All right. What's my phone number backwards? 8, 2. Okay. I learned this technique to get out of my emotional side of it. All right, I'm back. We get to the surface, and I'm okay. And again, I'm like saved from death, And I think to myself, either God's trying to take me out, or I am invincible, or not invincible, but I have something bigger to do, apparently. And so we escaped from that. And all I can say is, God, I would never wish that upon anyone. That's a long ways from the surface. I didn't know if I was going to make it. I had no reference point for that. And it literally was the most scary time to stay completely focused, so you could continue to live. And that's what happened. Fast forward, I was with my very best friend, Nate, that you talked about, and we were coming back from the mall in his car, and we had 2 other people in the car. I'm usually up front with him, and I was in the back seat, and we were in a hurry to get back. And he decides it's a windy day, it's storming. It hadn't started to rain, but the wind was blowing, often does here in Florida when we get storms. And he decides he's going to pass these cars to get going, and realizes we've got about 10 cars to pass, and there's a semi coming at us. He's in a pretty fast car, and we take off, and we're going, and we're going, and we're going, and we're passing these cars, and we're looking at this semi coming at us. And at the last second, we're able to get over. But just as Nate pulls the wheel over to the right to get into our lane, that semi goes by. But the combination of that, we're going about 95 miles an hour. It turned the car into a spin. So we immediately do this helicopter spin across oncoming traffic, nearly miss other cars head on, and I see this tree coming. And I don't know if anybody's ever been through this, but time seems to slow down in these moments. And I'm watching it, and I'm just praying we won't hit it. We won't hit it. Okay, we are going to hit this thing. And this tree got so big, there was no way to miss it. You know what I mean? It's because your senses are heightened. Thank God we hit it. We totaled the car, but we didn't hit it precisely in the middle of the side of this car. We hit it slightly towards the back of the car. So we spun off of it, totaled the car. I blasted out the back window. I was holding on to the front seat belt with my hand, and my girlfriend at the time's dad apparently was in the car behind us. So he witnessed this. He said he saw this guy come out the back and then pull himself back in. And so I took out the back window with my back and cut my back up. And I was actually the only one that ended up going to the hospital. I have no idea how that happened because the car was just sitting there smoking. It was done, right? Wrapped on this tree. But we hit it slightly off, and we didn't completely T-bone it perfectly. And again, I walked away from it. I spent the night in the hospital. I just had stitches. And I was like, holy shit, man. I can't believe I walked away from this one too. So if you want more a sad story, Nate
you,
and I.
you've had a lot of near death and a lot of death and a lot of loss of businesses, loss of
Yeah,
people's lives, near loss of your own on multiple occasions.
yeah,
Your brother, the loss of your brother. And that's the thing I said to you when we were
yeah,
pre-gaming, when we first got on. I'm like, wow, your story is filled with a lot of loss. We all have different stories.
yeah.
You've mentioned, though, a couple things through this. You mentioned that your mom had you listen to tapes, and I remember 8-track, so it didn't age you that much. But she listened to tapes,
Thank you.
so like those seeds were being planted, because there's
Yeah.
always a silver lining. There are always tools. And I know that, with your brother passing 3 years ago and Nate, your best friend, committing suicide,
Mm-hmm.
at that point, what was keeping you going?
Well, different stages, after Nate passed away from suicide, I was the first one on the scene. He called me right before he did it, because his 6-year-old son, Connor, was in the house. And that was that was something that it's just no words for that.
Yeah.
What kept me going after that was that, his son and his daughter, and, I bought him a motorcycle and introduced him to my nephew and my older brother, and we started riding dirt bikes together. That fueled a sense of purpose. My kids were very young as well. I'd been through so many things. I was so mad at Nate for doing this because it was just a bad decision. It was based on, that's how this a lot of times happens, a weak moment. And if I could have just talked him out of it, if I just would have known, I could have somehow got him through. That's part of my old story too, is just wishing I could have done more in some of these situations. But my faith in God, wanting to my kids to have a better life than I did, to have a chance in this world, knowing, at least believing at the time, that this world is magical and that there's a lot of opportunity out there. I really wanted some of that, and I was experiencing it. I was experiencing, having children, and I was also experiencing a lot of grief. So I don't know, my faith, I guess, it kept me going. When my brother passed away, that was really a turning point in my life. Didn't see that happening, and for a moment I thought, wow, my dad died at 54. My brother died at 55. Gosh, I'm going to be 50 soon,
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Not that I had a target on my back, but man, I kind of felt like I did. All these things had happened. How could this be like my actual future? How did I survive all these things? Why? Because I always thought that God was putting me through these things to teach me or get me prepared to where I was going to go. And now, I know that because
Mm-hmm.
as the CEO and co-founder of Conscious Content, I have a lot of responsibility. And I'm the one that's telling the world we're bringing awareness and education to most community. That's a lot, right? Plus the team and everything else. So I, it was a sad, sad time when my brother passed away. And my dog, my boxer, my best friend, Max, passed away just afterwards. And Kim has come to teach me that our animals, they hold a lot of space for us. And I think he held so much space for me going through all these things that he just couldn't, if could have changed anything, I'd have kept him out of that because I love that boy. Mm-hmm. I don't know what keeps us going. I know that each day is a brand new day. I always say that, our life is just like nature. There's seasons. Mm-hmm. Here in Florida, we don't have as many as they do up north, but, there's always a spring, and there's, coldest, darkest winters, there's always that spring, and it's a new opportunity, a new chance. So I don't know. I just convinced myself of it. I read a lot of books. I don't have a ton of really close friends, I have a lot. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of older friends that I've had forever, but not a lot that I resonate to at this moment, which I guess is
Okay.
exactly what it should be, because not everyone, I changed careers multiple times with my businesses, and and now I'm in media, and none of my older friends are really into that. I think they're excited that I'm doing this, but we don't hang out on a regular basis anymore. I play golf with them sometimes and that type of stuff. But maybe meeting Kim, that she came into my life not long after my brother passed away, and she was she was a good ear, and also because of her past experience as a therapist, energy work and various things, she would not only listen but offer a lot of friendly advice and guidance, and she believed in me and my vision. And as a matter of fact, this is something no one knows about, but way before Conscious Content, I owned a company called Electus, which is a financial advisory company.
Okay.
And she started to help me with some of my seminars, right? She really, I needed some help with that. So she was pretty good with the organizing. She did this, that, and the other. She came down one time and came to a couple of them and worked it with one of my co-workers. And she really liked it, and it was kind of fun. And she actually wrote a check, and she called it buying in. And she wrote me a check for, I don't know, I think it was like $5,000. And I didn't necessarily need it, but I kind of needed it because I used the money I just went through the divorce, and I kind of, through my divorce, the one thing I didn't want is to take the assets and all of that. I always believed that I could get out there and make money. So I didn't really leave with much. Sometimes I left with a spatula. But I ended up with my two daughters too. Although, my daughters are getting closer to their mom again, and I've been a big proponent of that they have a relationship with her, and that we have as good of a relationship as possible. But and now, so what got me through is probably hope, and baby wins. I call them little base hits. You set a little goal, and they don't have to be that big, and you just get a base hit, right? And you try it again and get some more. And what keeps me going now is that, even with what just recently happened to us, it's like, God, what more can life hand us? Well, maybe a quarantine for the world. Who knows? We have to learn how to pivot. So anyways, I
feel
think
like
that
with you, the seeds were planted along the way, and you had gained things, and when you lost them, you knew it was possible to gain them again. Am I off base in saying that?
Hell no.
I feel like it's your nature.
So
right. And when you came out of those accidents, you're like, wait, there's a bigger purpose here. I don't know what it is or what to do. But you use these things as like reminders, it seems like.
I think, Jen, you're so right. Thank you for bringing that up, because this is one thing I know. It's like, for people that maybe haven't had success, that are scared to go out on a limb and try their own business or try something because they maybe haven't done that before. They don't know what success looks like. I can tell you, because I achieved success younger. I started my own business. I was very fortunate to learn, how to do this, and I made a lot of money. And you get over that hump, and when you lose it all, which I did twice, I already had done the things that it required to get there. So it wasn't like fictional, like impossible. Like a lot of people, I think, if you haven't done it, it's unknown. So it's very scary. Once you've done it, you just have to kind of retrace your steps. And although my business has been in different areas and different industries, it's really it's really in your head. You have to believe that you can, the old saying, believe to achieve, but you have to believe in it. And so I'm kind of a visionary. So I think big picture. I'm not a nuts and bolts kind of person. So I could envision the life. And I think because I'd experienced success, even though I'd lost it multiple times, I knew it was possible. And I think
Mhm.
that is the key. If you know it's possible, then you can figure your way back. And that's half the battle, is believing that you can. So if I were to tell anyone out there that wants to be an entrepreneur or wants to do something, don't be afraid, because life is short. It can be short, but and it can be very difficult, but it also can be extremely beautiful and purposeful. And there's no reason why someone else can't have as much success as I had. I would just hope that they don't have as many setbacks as that I had, and I definitely hope my children don't have any of these setbacks in their life. But what, God never gives us something that we can't handle.
Mhm.
So
Well, faith is a
apparently,
big thing, and I understand that. Now, you had married your high school sweetheart, and when you divorced after 17 years, I
yeah.
know you met Kim around that time, but you have, from your upbringing and your dad being tough, and then his death at 14 all the way through. Can we just talk for a minute about healing later in life? Because we don't
Mhm.
always build. I mean, you had a lot of tools that you used throughout that time, but then you did get to a certain point where it was like, oh, I haven't gotten through all this like I thought I've gotten through it. Because through Conscious Contact, you guys have met a lot of really incredible people. And I saw a previewing of Light in the Darkness, and it is phenomenal. This isn't just a little media company or a little film. So I don't want to minimize that in any way.
Well,
Uh,
thank you.
but I also know, and you've mentioned a couple times, that you and Kim lost Kim's son a few weeks
Hmm.
ago from when this is recorded. So how much of that healing, because there are people out there who are like, well, I've been through all of that and I have those tools and tips, but I need more. You did a lot of that later in life. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I was I would tell people that I was a compartmentalizer. So when these
Okay.
things would happen to me, I would put them in a little box and I would put them away inside me. And then that the next day I could get back to work and I could get back to doing what I was doing, because I I don't know if it was the way I was brought up, but I never wanted to really burden other people with my problems. I also learned a hard lesson when in 2001, when the market crashed
Mm-hmm.
and I lost North Star Equity Partners. Um, I didn't really have anyone to turn to. Even my friends that I'd grown up with, when I went to them and said, "Oh my God, I'm losing, like, I mean, I'm having to close my business, this, that, and the other," I would hear, "I wish I had your problems, Brian. I wish I
Yeah.
did." Because I seemingly had it all going on. I had the car and a house and all these things, but I didn't come from very much, and I'd worked ever since I was like 10, so I just always was working. But I started to realize, wow, people don't really want to hear my problems. So I guess I'm going to keep them to myself. And that was incorrect. There are certain people and there's certain ways to ask for help. Talking to others can be very helpful. Talking to a therapist, if they're the correct therapist for you, and not every
Right.
therapist is perfect for everyone, has been phenomenal for me. But I compartmentalized everything through my life, and we didn't get through all my stories, and it would be a whole nother show to get through them all. But I kept putting them away and pretending they didn't exist. And after my brother passed away, I ran out of places to put them.
Yeah.
And I started to get what they call triggers that people with PTSD have. And I met Kim, and she started to explain what this was, and that you can't just put these things away. They can settle into our body. Our body has memory, and
Yeah.
people, you can get colon cancer from this. You can get liver disease from these things, and not everyone understands it or even believes that, but it really actually, in my opinion, is factual. So I had to learn that I had to trust people and open up and talk about these things. And I was fortunate enough that our very first film had several incredibly competent experts on
Yeah.
trauma, dealing with trauma, PTSD, and these types of things. And I began this process of talking to them. And then, I sort of test drive some of these people to vet them out. And so I've been very blessed in my later years, just over the last 2 or 3 years, to really work through a lot of these things and start to understand them and learn from them and let them go. Because our memories they're not real, but until we kind of deal with them and let them go, they keep coming up and they keep being part of your story. And then you're playing life with all this baggage rather than living in the moment, free of all that, where all the magic happens. And I used to preach that to myself when I was a teenager and into my 20s, and I was unstoppable, knowing that in that moment, everything can happen. But shit, life comes along. By the time I was 40, I was pulling a bag of this shit with me, and it was hard to work through it all. You know, it's like I didn't even know what to do, and little by little, I'm getting through it. As a matter of fact, next in a couple weeks, I'm going to Wisconsin if I'm allowed to get on a plane, and I'm going to spend a week with our newest contributor to Conscious Content, which is Dr. Carrie Edelman, and we're going to do some resonant therapy and sound therapy, and she's going to get me on a new diet. She's a vegan. I don't know if I can be a vegan, but I can try.
I don't know about that either.
I'm a keto kind of guy, and, but you know, I could probably lose 10 pounds right now being cooped up in the house for this long with all these kids. My daughter bakes all the time, and Kim has a sweet tooth, so I'd probably put on about 8 or 10 pounds. So anyways, it's a constant journey of working through these things, but I can already feel that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And not to make a pun or whatever with our film Light in the Darkness, but there really is. There can be light in your darkness, and I've been through a lot of darkness, so I definitely can see the light. And I'm just you know, it never stops the tough times. So you just got to know that life is a journey, and you just got to
love that. Yeah.
One step at a time.
I agree wholeheartedly. So with Conscious Content and the community, what is the best way for people to engage with you? Are you looking for anyone on your team? Where are you at? I know you have releases and you have a lot of things. Let's end on how people can find you and what they can do and what you need.
Okay. Well, what we really want is everyone to come to our website. That is our hub, because we're a media company. So of course we're creating films, and now we're in the process of writing a book, and we'll have a second one coming on more about grief later. But consciouscontent.org is the main hub where you can find us. And from there, you'll find all our social media. So we have a YouTube page, and we have an Instagram page, and we're even starting a Pinterest page, thanks to you. So yeah. But we have a Twitter page. I don't know all the handles for all of them, because actually we're working with a social media company that's handling a lot of that stuff for us. And we're having a brand new website created right now with a whole new look. Our website is very robust now, and you can go to it now, and we're really proud of it. Kim had a big part of that. It was a collaboration of all of our guys, but she really has pulled it together and did a great job. But we're getting a facelift, so probably 2 weeks out, we'll have a whole new look. But we're going to be starting an academy too on that page. But it's a great place to go to get free information about everything from mental wellness to PTSD to just knowing that we're creating a community. It's a place where like-minded people can come. And Kim and I are always posting on there now. We have a Facebook page at Conscious Content. So we're pretty easy to find. You're going to see a lot more of us because everybody's starting to push the button and put out our stuff. And we feel really blessed about that. We feel blessed to be part of your team, and you're on our team too.
Yeah.
We're excited about it. So,
Brian, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. It was a ride. That's for sure.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, it is. It has been a ride. I'm just trying to stay positive.